It is the ultimate legal red flag. When your own lawyers run for the exit, you know the ship is sinking. That is exactly what happened yesterday in federal court when Caryn Chandler's expensive legal team publicly fired their own client. They walked away from a multi-million-dollar case in the middle of a trial. Why? The official reason is irreconcilable differences, but the truth is far more damning. We have the inside story on the bounce checks, the hidden evidence, and the one lie Caryn told that forced her lawyers to quit on the spot. She is now legally radioactive, and no one will take her call. This is not just a setback. This is a total collapse of her defense strategy. Picture the scene inside the courtroom. The air is thick with tension. Papers are being shuffled, but not in the usual way. There is an aggressive finality to the way Caryn's lead attorney is packing his briefcase. He isn't preparing for cross-examination. He isn't reviewing notes for a closing argument. He is filing a motion to withdraw as counsel. Caryn Chandler is sitting at the defendant's table, looking smaller than she has ever looked before. She is frantic, whispering to an associate who is refusing to make eye contact with her. For years, she has maneuvered through the chaos of Roloff Farms, allegedly pulling the strings behind the scenes, but now the people she paid to protect her are walking out the door. Before we dive deep into the financial ruin and the shocking lies that caused this legal meltdown, I need you to take a split second to support the channel. If you want to stay ahead of the mainstream media and get the updates that Matt and Caryn don't want you to hear, hit that like button right now. It helps us get this truth out to more viewers. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to LPBW Update. We are tracking every motion, every leak, and every secret regarding this trial, and you do not want to miss the sentencing phase. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's get back to the scandal. To understand why a prestigious law firm would abandon a client in the middle of a high-profile federal fraud trial, you first have to understand the money. Federal defense is not cheap. We are talking about top-tier, white-collar criminal defense attorneys. These aren't the lawyers you find on a billboard by the highway. These are legal sharks who charge upwards of $1,500 an hour. For a complex fraud case involving forensic accounting, hidden assets, and years of documentation, the legal bill was already approaching 7 figures. Up until now, everyone assumed the money was secure. The narrative has always been that Matt Roloff, with his deep pockets and farm assets, was bankrolling the defense. We've reported previously on the existence of the secret CMC Holdings account, a slush fund allegedly set up to handle these exact kinds of emergencies. But here is where the story takes a dark turn for Caryn. According to insider reports leaking from the firm's billing department, the money has stopped flowing. The freeze didn't happen overnight. It started as a trickle, a delayed payment here, a request for an extension there. But the situation reached a crisis point when the court froze the CMC Holdings account pending the outcome of the trial. That was the lifeline. That was the war chest. When that account was locked down, the burden of payment shifted. The law firm, understandably, looked to their client for the next retainer fee. Retainers in federal cases are massive. They are essentially deposits that the lawyers draw from as they work. When the balance gets low, the client must top it up. If they don't, the work stops. Our sources suggest that Caryn Chandler wrote 2 personal checks to cover the gap. She tried to buy herself more time. She tried to keep the sharks swimming. But when the firm went to deposit those checks, the result was catastrophic. Insufficient funds. Bounce. For a high-powered law firm, a bounce check is an insult. It is a breach of contract. But more than that, it is a signal that the client is desperate. A client who cannot pay is a client who cannot be defended, at least not by a private firm. But the money was only half of the equation. Lawyers will sometimes stick with a broke client if they believe they can win, or if they believe the publicity is worth it, but they will never ever stick with a client who lies to them. And this brings us to the second and arguably more fatal reason for the walkout: the breach of trust, the ethical nightmare. In the legal world, the attorney-client privilege is sacred. You can tell your lawyer anything. You can tell them you are guilty. You can tell them where the bodies are buried. As long as you are honest with them, they can build a defense. They can suppress evidence. They can negotiate deals. They can spin the narrative. But the number one rule, the rule that is drilled into every law student from day one, is that you never lie to your own counsel. If you lie to your lawyer, you make them liable. You make them look incompetent. You destroy their strategy. And according to the leaks coming out of the firm, Caryn Chandler lied about everything. Let's talk about the burner phone. When we first broke the story about the burner phone found in the barn, the device allegedly used to communicate with offshore accounts and coordinate the sale of farm assets off the books, Caryn was confronted by her legal team. This was months ago during the discovery phase. They sat her down in a conference room, slid a photo of the phone across the mahogany table, and asked her a simple question: is this yours? Do you know anything about this? According to sources familiar with that meeting, Caryn looked her lead attorney in the eye and swore on her life that she had never seen it before. She claimed it was a fabrication. She claimed it was a plant by Chris Merrick, or a disgruntled farm employee to frame her. She was adamant. She was convincing. Based on her word, her lawyers built a strategy around denial. They filed motions claiming the evidence was planted. They accused the prosecution of overreach. They went out on a limb, professionally and publicly, stating that their client had no knowledge of any secondary communication devices. Then came the forensic report. The prosecution didn't just have the phone, they had the data. They had cell tower triangulation data that placed that specific phone in Caryn's purse, in her car, and in her residence for 6 months leading up to the indictment. When the prosecution dropped this bombshell in court, Caryn's lawyers were blindsided. They were humiliated. There is nothing a lawyer hates more than being made to look like a fool in front of a federal judge because their client lied to them. But it didn't stop there. The deception went deeper. There is the issue of the Arizona incident. We have spoken before about the rumors of a prior fraud allegation in Arizona, years before Caryn ever met the Roloffs. During the intake process, when a client hires a defense team, they have to fill out a comprehensive questionnaire. One of the questions is always, have you ever been arrested, charged, or investigated for fraud, theft, or financial crimes in any jurisdiction? Caryn checked no. She didn't just leave it blank. She actively denied it. She likely thought that because the previous incident was expunged or settled out of court, it wouldn't surface. She thought she could bury her past. She was wrong. Federal prosecutors have access to everything. They have access to sealed records, expunged files, and deep background checks that make a standard employer background check look like a joke. When the prosecution introduced the mugshot from Arizona as Rule 404B evidence of prior bad acts to prove a pattern of behavior, Caryn's defense team was once again caught completely off guard. They had no prepared defense for this. They had no explanation. They had been arguing that Caryn was a woman of unblemished character, a simple farm manager who got swept up in a misunderstanding. The introduction of the Arizona mugshot destroyed that narrative instantly. At that moment, the relationship between Caryn and her lawyers shifted from professional to hostile. You have to understand the position this puts a lawyer in. If a client lies about their criminal history and lies about the evidence, the lawyer cannot ethically put that client on the stand. If they put Caryn on the stand knowing she is going to lie, they are suborning perjury. They could lose their license. They could go to jail. Caryn had backed them into a corner where they had only two options: participate in her fraud or quit. The tension in the war room must have been unbearable. Imagine the late-night shouting matches. The lawyers demanded the truth, and Caryn, perhaps still trying to spin her way out of it, realized that her charm and her ability to manipulate situations, skills that served her well at Roloff Farms, were useless in a federal legal setting. The lawyers realized they were defending a phantom. They were defending a version of Caryn that didn't exist. The real Caryn was hiding funds, bouncing checks, and concealing critical evidence from the very people trying to save her from prison. The final straw, the moment that likely triggered the immediate filing of the motion, was the realization that Caryn was potentially still hiding assets. If the lawyers are being paid with funds that are derived from ongoing fraud, they can be clawed back. No lawyer wants to work for free, and certainly no lawyer wants to have to return their fees to the government because their client paid them with dirty money. The combination of the bounced personal checks and the realization that the clean money was gone created a perfect storm. So they did what any rational legal team would do. They cut the cord. But in the legal world, you can't just ghost your client. You have to ask the judge for permission. And this is where the drama truly escalates. Filing a motion to withdraw in the middle of a trial is a nuclear option. It signals to the judge, the jury, and the prosecution that the defendant is impossible to work with. It essentially validates the prosecution's case without saying a word. It screams, "We can't help this woman because she won't let us." Caryn is now standing in the wreckage of her own making. The money is gone. The trust is gone. And the most dangerous part of this story is just beginning, because now she is alone. She is facing the full weight of the United States government without the shield of a high-powered legal team. She is legally radioactive. The word is out in the Oregon legal community. The gossip channels among attorneys are buzzing. Everyone knows she bounces checks. Everyone knows she lies to counsel. No reputable firm is going to touch this case with a 10-foot pole. She has become the client from hell, and the clock is ticking down to sentencing. This brings us to the reality of her situation today. She isn't just looking for a new lawyer. She is looking for a miracle. The judge is furious. The delays are mounting. And Caryn Chandler, the woman who once seemingly controlled the destiny of Roloff Farms, is about to learn that in federal court, you cannot manipulate the truth. You cannot hide the phone. You cannot erase the mugshot. And you certainly cannot pay your bills with promises. As we move into the next phase of this disaster, we have to look at the courtroom dynamics. What happens when the motion is actually presented? How does a judge react when a trial is derailed by a defendant's deceit? The transcript of the hearing where the lawyers officially quit is pure gold. It reveals the level of frustration and the absolute breakdown of the defense. It's a moment of humiliation that Caryn will never forget. But it also sets the stage for the next nightmare, the public defender. The moment that document hit the docket, the entire energy of the trial shifted. In the legal world, a motion to withdraw filed in the middle of active litigation is the equivalent of a bomb going off. Judges absolutely despise these motions. They wreck the schedule, they confuse the jury, and they waste taxpayer money. When Caryn's team filed the paperwork, the judge didn't just sign it. He demanded answers. According to courtroom observers, the judge's face turned a shade of red that matched the exit signs. He immediately cleared the courtroom, ordering the jury to the deliberation room and the spectators to the hall. He summoned the prosecution and Caryn's defense team into his private chambers. This is where the real drama happened, behind closed doors, away from the cameras and the court reporter's transcript. While we don't have the official transcript of that in-camera conference, legal experts and sources close to the clerk's office have painted a vivid picture of the confrontation. The judge reportedly slammed his hand on the desk and demanded to know why. With only weeks left before the defense was supposed to rest, these high-priced lawyers were jumping ship. He likely screamed that this was prejudicial to the defendant and a waste of the court's time. This is the moment where Caryn's lawyers had to walk the tightrope. They couldn't explicitly tell the judge, "She lied to us about the burner phone," because that would violate attorney-client privilege. They couldn't say, "She's broke and her boyfriend cut her off," because financial disputes alone are rarely enough to quit mid-trial in federal court. They had to use the magic words, the code words that every judge understands but never wants to hear. They reportedly told the judge that the client has made continued representation unreasonably difficult and has pursued a course of action that the lawyer considers repugnant or imprudent. In plain English, like, she is forcing us to lie and we won't do it. When a defense attorney tells a federal judge that their client is making it ethically impossible to defend them, the judge's hands are tied. He cannot force a lawyer to suborn perjury. He cannot force a lawyer to stay on a case where the trust is so broken that a defense is impossible. The judge looked at the lawyers, looked at the motion, and then, with visible disgust, granted the withdrawal. But he didn't let Caryn off the hook. When they returned to the open courtroom, the judge turned his wrath directly onto Caryn Chandler. He didn't mince words. He told her that she was playing games with the federal justice system. He warned her that her antics had cost her the only advantage she had left. He granted the motion, officially releasing her legal team. You could see the relief on the lawyers' faces. They didn't even look back at her. They packed their bags, shook hands with the prosecutor, a gesture that must have stung Caryn to her core, and walked out of the courtroom, leaving her sitting alone at the defense table. It was a visual representation of her total isolation. The judge then stared her down and gave her a strict deadline: 14 days. She had exactly 2 weeks to find new counsel who could get up to speed on a case involving thousands of financial documents, forensic accounting reports, and years of complex fraud allegations. He banged the gavel, and the session was over. Now, you might be thinking, 14 days is plenty of time. She can just hire another firm, right? She's Caryn Chandler. She has connections. She has the Roloff name attached to her scandal. But this is where the aftermath begins, and it is brutal. This is the part of the story the mainstream outlets aren't covering because they don't understand how the legal fraternity works. Caryn Chandler is now what is known in the industry as legally radioactive. The legal community in Oregon, particularly the high-end federal defense bar in Portland and Hillsborough, is incredibly small. Everyone knows everyone. They go to the same country clubs, they eat at the same steakhouses, and they gossip. Bad news travels faster than a settlement check. Within hours of her team walking out, the word was out on the street. Caryn Chandler is a non-paying client who lies to her lawyers. That is the kiss of death. We have received exclusive tips that Caryn spent the first 48 hours after the hearing frantically calling every major criminal defense firm in the state. She called the fixers, the lawyers known for making problems disappear. And the response? Silence. Secretaries were instructed to tell her the partners were in court or not taking new clients. One source at a prominent Portland firm told us that when Caryn's name appeared on the caller ID, the senior partner laughed and said, "Not for $1 million cash." They know she burned her previous team. They know she bounced checks. No private attorney is going to risk their reputation and their bottom line for a sinking ship. She is blacklisted. It is an unwritten list, but it is as solid as iron. She has become a pariah. The arrogance that served her so well when she was managing the farm, the belief that she could charm or manipulate her way out of any corner has hit a brick wall. You cannot charm a lawyer who knows you stiffed your last 3 attorneys. So what happens when you have 2 weeks to find a lawyer and no one will take your money? You fall into the safety net that was never designed for people like Caryn Chandler. You are assigned a public defender. This is the ultimate humiliation for someone who prides herself on status, wealth, and appearance. Public defenders are noble, hardworking attorneys. They are true believers in the Constitution, but they are also overworked, underpaid, and buried under avalanches of cases. A private federal defense lawyer handles maybe 5 or 6 big cases a year. A public defender might be juggling 50 to 100 active files at once. They do not have teams of paralegals. They do not have private investigators on speed dial. They do not have the time to hold your hand and listen to your side of the story for hours on end. We have learned that Caryn has been assigned a court-appointed attorney from the federal defender's office. This poor lawyer has just been handed a case with terabytes of discovery data, thousands of pages of text messages, and a client who is notorious for being difficult, all just weeks before the most critical phase of the trial. There is no way this new lawyer can catch up. It is physically impossible. The strategy now shifts from how do we win this to damage control. The public defender isn't going to fight for an acquittal. They are going to look at the evidence, see the mountain of proof, and likely tell Caryn the one thing she never wanted to hear. We need to beg for a plea deal. The contrast is staggering. A week ago, Caryn was being driven to court, flanked by men in $3,000 suits who were fighting every motion. Today, she is meeting a harried public defender in a cramped government office, likely sitting on a plastic chair, being told that her best case scenario is 5 years in federal prison instead of 10. The glamour is gone, the facade has crumbled, and the reality of the situation is setting in. She is going into the final stretch of a federal fraud trial with a lawyer she just met who barely knows the difference between Roloff Farms and a pumpkin patch. The prosecutor, on the other hand, has been building this case for 2 years. They know every check number, every text message, and every lie. It is a slaughter waiting to happen. This legal meltdown has stripped Caryn of her last line of defense. She has no armor left, but surely, you ask, what about Matt? What about the man she did all of this for? Surely Matt Roloff, the patriarch, the man with the assets, would step in to save his partner from this humiliation. He could write a check today and hire a new dream team. He could mortgage the farm. He could sell a piece of land. He could do something. But the silence from Matt's camp is deafening. And that brings us to the final, most personal betrayal in this entire saga. Because while Caryn is scrambling for legal survival, Matt Roloff is doing something very different. He is protecting himself. The darkest moment of this entire tragedy didn't happen in the courtroom. It happened in the holding cell immediately after the hearing. When the judge granted the motion to withdraw, sources indicate that Caryn's bail status was immediately reviewed. With no counsel, no fixed address that the court could verify as stable due to the financial freeze and the sudden flight risk implication of a defendant who has lost their legal tether, Caryn was temporarily remanded into custody while the public defender paperwork was processed. It was in that cold, concrete room that the reality of her life truly shattered. She was allowed one phone call. There was only one number to dial. She didn't call her children. She didn't call a bail bondsman. She called Matt Roloff. We have spoken to a source inside the detention facility who claims to have knowledge of that conversation. It wasn't a long call. It was frantic. It was the sound of a woman begging for her life. Caryn reportedly pleaded with Matt to help her. She begged him to liquidate assets, to sell a piece of the farm, to take out a high-interest emergency loan. Anything to get a retainer check to a new firm before the 14-day deadline expired. She needed a lifeline. She needed the man she had spent the last decade protecting to finally step up and protect her. She needed the partner she had conspired with, the man for whom she had allegedly cooked the books and burned the bridges with his own family, to show just 1 ounce of loyalty. And Matt Roloff said no. According to The Insider, Matt's voice was calm, detached, and terrifyingly businesslike. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply did the math. He told her, "I can't. I have to think about my own legal fees now." He explained that with the investigation widening, his own assets were under scrutiny. He claimed that if he moved a large sum of money to pay for her defense now, it would look like money laundering or witness tampering. He used the legal peril as a shield, but the message was clear. You are on your own. He told her that he had to preserve the farm that she helped him keep, the farm that she alienated his children to secure. He chose the dirt over the woman. He chose the legacy over the partner. The call ended not with a goodbye, but with a click. This is the ultimate irony of the Caryn Chandler saga. For years, fans have speculated that she was the gold digger, the mastermind, the one manipulating Matt to get her hands on the Roloff fortune. But in the end, Matt Roloff proved to be the more ruthless player. He used her. He used her organizational skills to manage the chaos. He used her toughness to deal with Amy. He used her willingness to bend the rules to secure his financial future. And now that she is a liability, now that she is legally radioactive, he has discarded her like a piece of broken farm equipment. He has cut her loose to float away into the federal prison system while he sits in the big house she helped him build, counting the money she helped him save. The betrayal is total. It is absolute. The woman who thought she was the co-owner of an empire is now destitute, relying on a public defender who doesn't know her name, facing a judge who despises her tactics, and staring down a prosecutor who smells blood in the water. She has no money. She has no lawyer. She has no allies. The CMC Holdings account is frozen. The burner phone has been exposed. The Arizona mugshot is in evidence. And the man she did it all for has locked the gates. As we look at the wreckage of Caryn Chandler's life, we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. Is this justice? For years, viewers watched her smirk in the background as the Roloff family fell apart. We watched her intervene in disputes that weren't hers. We watched her drive a wedge between a father and his sons. There is a sense of karmic balance to this. She sowed discord, and now she is reaping isolation. She chased the money, and now she is bankrupt. She sought control, and now she has none. But is the punishment too severe? To be abandoned by everyone, to be left defenseless in a federal trial, to be betrayed by the person you love most when you are at your lowest point. It is a fate that is almost Shakespearean in its cruelty. Caryn Chandler is about to face the biggest fight of her life completely alone. The sentencing hearing is coming. The plea deals are being whispered in the hallways. The final chapter of her role in the Roloff story is being written not by her, but by the federal government. She is walking into that courtroom a ghost of the woman she used to be. And Matt Roloff, he will likely be watching from a safe distance, safe on his farm, ensuring that his narrative survives, even if hers does not. So I will turn this over to you, the jury of public opinion. Do you feel even a little bit sorry for her, or is this the ultimate karma? Does she deserve to be left to the wolves, or did Matt Roloff just prove himself to be the true villain of Little People, Big World? It is a brutal end, but maybe it is the only end that made sense. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Type "karma is real" if you think she got what she deserved, or "too harsh" if you think Matt went too far. I read every single comment, and I want to know where you stand. And listen, you need to make sure you are subscribed to this channel. The final verdict is coming in. We are hearing rumors that the sentencing date has been expedited. We are going to be live streaming the results directly from the courthouse steps the moment they come in. We will have the plea deal details, the prison term length, and the first photos of Caryn leaving the court. Whether she walks to a car or is led away in cuffs, You do not want to miss the finale of this real-life drama. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on the notification bell. This is LPBW Update, and we will see you on Judgment Day.